covering the stories that impact your life, your town, your state, and your future. This is the Means Report with your host, Brad Means.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Means Report. We certainly appreciate you spending part of your day with us, and we have been doing a series of Means Reports lately where we try to inform you about what's going on in Augusta and what's being done to make the CSRA better. And today is no different. Today we are so pleased to have District 1 Commissioner Jordan Johnson as our special guest today. He's going to talk to us about key city issues. I know that you will walk away from this edition of the Means Report better informed and better equipped to do your part to improve our way of life in these parts. And of course, we're always going to wrap up the Means Report with ways that you can stay in touch with us. It's easy. You can help us book more great guests like Commissioner Jordan Johnson. Commissioner, thanks for what you do for our city, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's an honor to join you. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, it's long overdue, and I appreciate you joining us. I wanted to ask you just a general question, because I often wonder this when I see you and other commissioners on the news. Why did you decide to run? Why did you get off the sidelines and want to serve your community? And are you glad you did?
It's a great question to start off with. I was elected at 25 years old, and I don't know what possessed me at 25 years old to attempt to run for the county commission.
Yeah.
But I know that my passion was to make sure that I served the community. I saw District 1 as a community that my family had its roots in East Augusta, in Delta Manor, Oak Point now, areas around Dogwood Terrace, the 15th Street area, and I didn't see much change. And so instead of sitting around hoping for the change to be made, I just took a shot in the dark and wanted to be the change maker myself. And so I decided to run, and graciously, fortunately, the community supported my candidacy.
Did you ever sit at your desk a few short, and I mean really a few short years ago at Cross Creek High School and think one day I'll help run this town?
No, I never thought that. Yeah. I never thought at Cross Creek High back in 2011, 2012 that I would run for the commission.
That's so scary. That was 2 seconds ago.
That was a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I never thought that I would be on the commission. As a matter of fact, I never really wanted to be on the commission. But what I wanted to do was make sure that change actually happened in an area where I felt as though change was needed. And so after some talks with my family and, of course, praying to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, Amen, we decided to take on this journey. And I have enjoyed the journey so far.
You know, back in the day, we always used to, on this show and just on our newscasts, talk about division on the commission and how there was just this big need for everybody to get along. What's it like behind the scenes so far? Do you get along with your fellow commissioners?
Absolutely. We are always agreeing on majority of the topics that comes before us. Of course, there will be opportunities, and certainly we see it on the news all the time, where we don't agree on every issue. But we are always talking behind the scenes, always having lunch, always on the phone. We've always have made it a personal mission of ours to get to know one another on a personal level versus just collaborating as colleagues. And so I've enjoyed, talking to all of my colleagues, even the ones that retired last year. We've have a really good relationship that I think people should know more about.
Is the bulk of city business handled during those meetings and those phone calls and those lunches before the actual commission meeting takes place? I mean, I'm not saying anything is done behind closed doors. I'm just saying, do y'all work out all the fine print before you go before the public? How's that work?
Well, in a perfect world, that's how things happen. But, most times when an item comes before the commission, we have a general idea at what direction we would like to go, all 10 of us. And, sometimes it may take a phone call. Sometimes it may take a lunch between two of us. But we typically come to the table and decide how to move the city of Augusta forward, because there's not a single commissioner in place now that doesn't love Augusta.
Yeah.
We all love Augusta, and we all have dedicated majority of the time that we spend every day towards serving Augusta, Richmond County.
Does the public's input matter? What I mean by that is, has there ever been a moment during your time in office where the commission chambers were filled with people, or there were folks there for a certain cause that made you and your fellow leaders say, you know what, after hearing them and seeing this crowd, maybe we better revisit this item?
Oh, absolutely. I consider myself to be a commissioner that listens to the people. And I always tell folks in the community that the difference between change happening in your community or not is you showing up, is your community showing up. And so the most powerful voice in the room at commission meetings will always be the voice of the people. And so, being at the commission meetings, coming to the meetings, meeting with your commissioners, letting your voice be heard is the most important piece of the puzzle where change in Augusta is concerning. And so absolutely, public opinion is super important.
Let's give people an idea of where District 1 is. I looked at the map, and so I thought a great way to sum it up is to say that it's from the state line westward to the hill. So picture from the South Carolina line over towards, say, the AU Summerville campus. Is that about right? Are there other places that people should think of when they think of District 1?
So you're spot on. I usually take District 1 and break it up into neighborhoods. And so you have your East Augusta neighborhood, your Laney Walker neighborhood, parts of Summerville, what I call Central Augusta, your Hurd Avenue, McDowell Street area. You have Sand Hills. You have parts out in South Augusta, past the airport. The Pineview neighborhood, so many others. I'm trying my best not to forget anyone. But Harrisburg is also in part of District 1 downtown. And so the parameters that you gave is absolutely spot on. But we're filled with so many neighborhoods that, we're about 14 neighborhoods deep in District 1, plus your downtown area, your hospital district. So it's a pretty large district.
It is. When I saw it on the map, it is large. And we're going to talk about what's going on, not just in District 1, but throughout the city of Augusta, and Commissioner Johnson and his colleagues' efforts to help improve our way of life here. We are going to hit all of the big topics that the Commission is talking about when the Means Report continues. Welcome back to the Means Report. Augusta Commissioner Jordan Johnson is our special guest today, talking about all things Augusta. He is the youngest commissioner ever to serve. It's mighty impressive, and we thank you for doing that. So many people, they sit at home and complain, or they're keyboard warriors and they criticize, but you stepped up, and I think that's awesome.
Well, again, I really appreciate the community for taking a chance on a then 25-year-old running for the Augusta Commission. It's a big task, and I hope that I'll be able to serve in a way that makes them proud so that we can keep pushing Augusta forward.
One of the more impressive things I saw early in your time in office was one night on the 6 o'clock news, you were touring a homeless camp with one of our reporters. It was one that was just off Boy Scout Road, and you were walking through it in the thick of things, explaining what the city was trying to do. How is our effort to address homelessness going?
So in 2021, we had experienced the death of a homeless veteran on the steps of Gap Ministries, and I try my best to say his name often, Mr. Willie Walker. And that sparked the community's concerns about what the city was doing to address homelessness. And so after a few meetings and a few conversations with our nonprofit providers and a few members of our local government, we created the Homeless Task Force. And that Homeless Task Force was established simply to make sure that we had a clear vision and a clear plan in place to address the rising numbers of homelessness in Augusta, Richmond County. And quite frankly, that includes access to affordable housing. That includes making sure that gaps in services were filled. And that also included making sure that if homelessness does occur, that is rare, that is brief, and it's non-reoccurring. And so one of the most areas about the Homeless Task Force that I'm most proud about is the street outreach team. And so members of the Sheriff's Office, the Marshal's Office, and many others, nonprofit providers, myself, others, we go out into encampments. We go exactly where our homeless brothers and sisters are living, and we offer services because we can't expect them to come to us all the time. We have to take the services to where they are, and we've been successful in helping house certain individuals. We've been successful in connecting them to mental health resources, and in some cases, folks who have found their way to Augusta and had difficulty getting back home, we've had great success helping them get back reconnected with their families. And so this is more than just something that we're doing to clean Augusta up as far as how some people view it. This is a ministry. This is something that we feel is necessary to be doing as a government because people are actually in need. And I hope that at the end of the day, that's the message that we're putting out, and then the goal will follow.
What is a homeless person up close? Is it someone who ran out of money? Is it someone who's addicted to drugs? Is it someone who's mentally ill, or is that all of the above?
Well, a lot goes into what makes someone homeless. I would remember being under the 13th Street Bridge once, and I was speaking to a gentleman, and he shared that he was homeless because he had gone through a divorce and that he had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
His children live in Augusta, but he didn't have enough income, he didn't have enough resources to live anywhere else, so he sleeps under the bridge. I've also had a conversation with a young lady who frequents Broad Street. She's on Broad Street, she sleeps there every night. and she told me her story. She's from Brooklyn, New York, and she came to Augusta because she was incarcerated and she got a one-way bus ticket from Florida here. And, at the end of the day, she's just chosen Augusta as home. And all these conversations have continued. And when we speak to people, it's not just that folks want to stay on the street. I hear people say all the time, well, people just want to be homeless. Well, there may be a number of people who just choose this lifestyle, but I haven't seen that in Augusta, Richmond County. What I've seen is that there's a need in this county. And while we want to be, aware, while we want to be, fair to everyone, we have to make sure that we're putting our best efforts forward to help as many people as we can.
We'll move on from homelessness in a minute, but you're making me think of so many things.
Yeah.
One of them is this. I've never been in a town that has more nonprofits than Augusta, Georgia.
Right.
And people in the nonprofit business will tell you that as well. There are tons of them here. Why can't homeless people go through those doors, go through those agencies whose mission is to help them and get on a better path? Why do they remain in those encampments and throughout the city?
Well, one of the issues that we faced, Brad, was that the nonprofits that we had in Augusta, Richmond County were not collaborating with one another. Okay. And what we've done through the Homeless Task Force was kind of bring everyone together, put them under one roof, literally. And so we've created the First Stop Village over at the Kroc Center, where many nonprofit organizations are housed, so that if you are homeless, you go to one place to get the services that you need to help you get on track to having a better quality of life. That's what the task force was about. Identifying the shortcomings, identifying the gaps, and then using the nonprofit sector to solve those issues with the government assistance where necessary. That's one of the most, highest achievements of the task force in my mind, is consolidating all of those resources in one place so that people aren't scattered and going all over the county looking for one service.
I saw a picture on your Facebook page the other day of a Weed Street parcel of land before and after. Before, it was covered with litter. It looked like maybe someone had been evicted. I don't know. The after picture, it was the most beautiful piece of land ever. Are we doing enough to clean our town up? What can we do to get rid of all this litter and blight and things that make our visitors think, come on, Augusta?
Well, in 21, we passed our first comprehensive blight ordinance, which seeks to address that issue. And we have been utilizing that blight ordinance as much as possible. I believe last year we demolished about maybe 80 plus homes, which is a great improvement. We still have a lot more to demolish. It's a funding issue, of course, so we will be taking the step during this budget cycle to fund more demolitions in our city, but doing it in a way that will incentivize redevelopment. But when it comes to cleaning our city, I think that we're doing the best that we can at this time. The Marshal's office is always out going around doing sweeps, no pun intended, right, to make sure that our community is cleaned. And certainly I ride my district at least, every day, it seems like, and if I see something, I try to jump on top of it. But we're working, and I know that folks have concerns about service delivery, but Augusta's working, our departments are working around the clock, and our whole goal is just to make sure that we're serving the citizens as best as possible.
What's the number one complaint or concern you get from somebody? Is it still potholes, or has it changed?
Well, during the summer months, it's usually grass. It's grass needing to be cut, and we're working our way through that.
You mean someone would say, hey, my neighbor won't cut their grass, or they'll say, hey, this lot that I passed on the John C. Calhoun Expressway is overgrown? What kind of grass complaints are they?
A little bit of both of those. Where the neighbor not cutting their grass is concerned, the city of Augusta agreed to create a program, lending a helping hand. So if there's a neighbor who may be disabled or elderly, the city will provide the tools and some assistance to help you cut your properties. If there's a vacant lot, the blight ordinance is used to make sure that absentee landlords are held accountable for the conditions that they're leaving neighborhoods. And then off-road, your right-of-ways and the areas that we receive a lot of concerns about, that takes more of an in-house effort, which is what the commission has been doing over the last few months, to put processes in place to make sure that areas are clean. But we're working tremendously. We're working through the night, so to speak, to make these things work.
What about non-grass cutting issues? Potholes has to make the list.
I've received quite a few calls about potholes, Wrightsboro Road to be more specific.
No doubt.
Yeah, we're going to be starting the Wrightsboro Road project next year, so I think folks will be excited about that. It'll be a phased project. But mostly I receive calls about just folks living in poverty. I receive a lot of calls about folks being evicted, not have enough money to pay their rent and their utilities. And I'm telling you, since being on the commission, I have gotten a much greater understanding of what poverty looks like in our community. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, so I have somewhat of an understanding. But just to hear some of the stories from residents at Richmond Summit or at the Maxwell House, or just even in neighborhoods where you won't even think that these issues are there, folks are really hurting. And I've tried to take this time on the commission to spearhead efforts that would address the everyday needs of people in our community.
What can you do to help? Do you put a check in their hand? Do you provide them with other resources? Because I promise people are watching this show right now thinking, I'm that person.
Yeah.
Commissioner, help me. What can you do to change their life?
I couldn't tell you the amount of times that I've heard that sentence, please help me. Commissioner, help. I can play you voice messages now on my phone where people have said that. And it's so important that we understand that the government can help to a degree, but we have to lean on our nonprofit supporters. We have to lean on our partners in the nonprofit world to help lift people out of poverty. But we have to be the champions. We have to be the ones who are presenting programs to perhaps help with childhood literacy, the fundamentals of making sure that people are coming out of poverty. This education. What are we doing to support childhood literacy? What are we doing to make sure that parents have access to the support that they need? You know that old saying, you can teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. But what if they don't have access to the pond? They'll never have the access to the resources that they need. And I think that's the biggest issue there. How do we lean on our nonprofit supporters and use government assistance when necessary to help people get from one point in life to another?
You know, I asked you if you got along with your fellow commissioners at the beginning of this interview. What about the mayor? What's it like behind the scenes with Mayor Garnett Johnson? Are you all good?
Mayor Johnson is a fine gentleman. We don't agree on every topic, of course.
Wait a second. It seems like you're not saying something as much as you are saying something.
He's a fine gentleman.
Oh my word!
And that's the general consensus.
Yeah.
He's always smiling. He always has an optimistic approach on things.
So true.
Yes. We don't agree on everything, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a coffee or we can't go have lunch, as we do often.
Okay, listen. Jarrett, please keep me honest on time. I don't want to run out of time. But Commissioner Johnson, what's an example of something where the mayor would say something, talk about an issue, and you go, oh, no, that's not a great idea. Can you remember an exchange like that? And it's okay if you don't.
Well, I don't remember to the extent that I could, give on the air now.
Right.
I think if I had to point to one instance, it probably would have been this whole notion around the city arborist. I know that was a hot topic at one point. But that wasn't a topic that we disagreed on to the point to where we didn't have a conversation with one another.
Right.
It was just something that we disagreed on and we kept moving. And that's the general, dwellings on the entire commission. We don't get into fist fights. We don't get into these hard, bickering contests. We just disagree. We agree to disagree. And we keep moving. But I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Mayor Johnson and the rest of my colleagues.
So the arborist thing, if memory serves, he wanted to bring in somebody whose job it was to oversee trees in Augusta and protect them in many cases. And then there was some pushback from others who said we do not need to hire someone to do that job, right?
Right.
So in a situation like that, could the mayor, or maybe it's a commissioner presenting that idea, say, all right, I feel you, you're against it. But what if I hook District 1 up in these ways? Then will you give me an arborist? Is that stuff that happens?
I guess that could happen, but it's not necessary. That's not the type of politics that I engage in, and I don't think that my colleagues engage in that type of politics either. I think the way that we get around things like that is we come to the table and we decide the best route to take. Where the arborist is concerned, maybe we don't have the money in the budget to hire a full-time arborist because, of course, we have to make sure that we're being good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. The city is not just sitting on money to just blow. Instead of hiring someone full-time, perhaps we can just increase the budget of the engineering department to procure out arbor services to folks who have that expertise. There's ways to collaborate, not give and take, but there's ways to collaborate, which goes back to my other point, is that we don't just cross our arms and stomp away. We come to the table, we decide what's best for the city of Augusta, and we continue to move forward. And that is the beauty in being on the commission, being able to see all 10 commissioners work together to decide what's best for the city of Augusta.
Let me ask you about just your vision for the city of Augusta. And I think I asked Commissioner Francine Scott this same thing. Is there a town that you've seen where you think, okay, we need to really imitate or mimic what they're doing in Augusta and we can go to the next level?
No, I love Augusta so much so that I think that we can be the example across the world as to what a thriving city where folks would want to live, work, play, raise their families, spend their dollars. We can be that example. I don't look at other cities to see what they're doing to replicate in Augusta. Surely other cities are doing cool things and we want to do things like that in Augusta, but I think Augusta is that shining city on the hill. I think that we're the city that folks around Georgia want to look at and try to see how we're doing. And you know, that's a great responsibility that the elected officials in this city have, because we're the champions for Augusta. We're the folks who will be the cheerleaders to make sure that folks want to come and invest in our city.
Maybe one or two more questions. The first one is this an easy place to do business? Whether it's a man or a woman trying to start their own operation, whether it is somebody trying to redevelop part of Augusta so it's more business friendly. Is there too much red tape, or is this an easy town to do things like that?
I think that where development is concerned, we have a lot of projects open that will transform Augusta, Richmond County. If you look at the infrastructure projects that we've done in East Augusta, projects that we've done in Sand Hills, projects that are ongoing throughout downtown, it speaks to the future of Augusta, and it speaks to our ability to really change this community. We have projects on the table that would take a stab at the food desert issue that surrounds District 1. Just 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting with some developers, and they're looking to come to Augusta. So fingers crossed we'll see that to the finish line.
Grocery store?
Grocery stores.
Okay.
Yes, and so, you know, I don't think that there's as much red tape as it may be perceived, but I do think that we owe it to ourselves to take a look at our processes so that we can make it easier for people to do business in Augusta, Richmond County, because of course, we're always thinking with the future in mind.
Last question, I have about 20 seconds. Where do you go from here? You, as you said at the beginning, got off to a very young start in your political life. What do you think the future holds?
I don't know, and I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. You know, being on the commission is a full-time job, although it's part-time in nature. I don't have time to think about anything past District 1 Commission at this point. But again, I'm just always grateful for the opportunity to serve on the commission. I don't take it lightly, because this is my city. I love Augusta. I was born and raised here, and I don't see myself being anywhere else. And so I don't spend much time thinking about what's next. We live in and now, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that this community is taken care of while we have the seat.
Well, I think you're an outstanding reflection of what it is to live in Augusta. I love this town. You love this town. And it's been a pleasure to talk with you this past half hour.
Likewise. Thank you, Brad.
Absolutely. District 1 Commissioner Jordan Johnson working hard for the city of Augusta. Thank you to Commissioner Johnson. Thank you to his family, because his phone's always ringing off the hook, and they have to put up with that. When we come back, how you can help shape future editions of this broadcast. It is easy. We will show you in a moment.